Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. And today, as we continue working our way backwards through the alphabet and the letter H, we have some semi-big names before we get to another enormously big name. Here are a couple of really unknown composers who wrote some very attractive music. The first is Emil Hartmann. Here he is. Emil Hartmann was the son of J.P.E. Hartmann, who was a big deal in the mid-19th century in Denmark. He was not a terribly interesting composer, actually, stylistically. I think his son was probably better, and he outlived his son by a year. His dates were only, 1836 to 1898. So he did not have a terribly long life. But the music he wrote is extremely attractive. Good, solid, tuneful, well-scored late romantic stuff that you'll really enjoy. And both the recordings of Hartmann's music that I have, Emil that is, are on Da Capo. So you should be able to find them. And we begin with his violin concerto. It's in G minor, and it's really a beautiful work. It's in the spirit of Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto, probably. I wrote a very long review of these pieces at ClassicsToday.com, so you can go and check that out if you're interested. But it's really, really an attractive work. 25 minutes long, beautifully written for the soloist. Doesn't outstay its welcome at any point. There's a cello concerto here in D minor. That's only 18 minutes long. It's a little bit slighter. His music tends to be light, which I like. There's so much heaviness in the world, including me. We can all use a little lightness now and then, don't you think? And his piano concerto is marvelous. That's in F minor, and it's like a big 26 minutes with a fun-filled canzonetta andante central movement, and a zippy finale. All of these pieces are beautifully structured, attractively written, and they're marvelously played on this disc. It features the Helsingborg Symphony Orchestra under Hannu Lintu, with Christina Astrand is the violinist. She's quite good. And Stanimir Todorov, who is the cellist, right? Yep. And Per Salo piano. There's nothing not to enjoy. If you like just attractive, somewhat conservative, but nicely written, beautifully attractive late romantic music, give Emil Hartmann a try. These concertos are a find. They truly, truly are. Let's see, how am I going to do this? I'll do it that way. Then we have another disc of orchestral works, his Nordic folk dances. Well, those are charming. You have a couple minuets, a couple of scherzos, and a spring dance. These were published in 1876. The whole suite, 5 dances, takes about 24 minutes. They're not particularly ethnic. There's a drone bass effect here or there or something. There's a certain rusticity about them, but they're not heavily nationalistic in any one particular national sense. It's just charming music, really pretty music. Then we got this symphonic poem, Håkon Jarl, 21 minutes of Storm und Drang. You know the story. It was a tone poem by Smetana. Håkon Jarl was the Scandinavian peasant who was opposing the advent of Christianity, represented by Olav Tryggvason of, Grieg's abortive opera. These people got mixed up with each other in all kinds of musical settings. Needless to say, Christianity wins, sadly, because Håkon Jarl gets killed. Poor guy. But it's a fun piece. It really is. It's nicely written, nicely composed and exciting. And you've got, marches and peasant songs and, all kinds of stuff. The only problem here, and this in a Carnival Feast, Opus 32, which is it's like a ballet suite, almost half an hour long, is that the performances here are not as good as they are on the disc of concertos. Unfortunately, the sound is a little muffled in the last 2 works. The Copenhagen Philharmonic Orchestra under Bo Holten, they could play with more fire, a little bit more impact. I know that, beggars can't be choosers when it comes to performances of virtually unknown repertoire. So you pays your money and you takes your chances. It's still worth hearing. It just could be better. I mean, evidently not as good as the concertos, but it happens. Then we have totally different. We're moving to contemporary living composerdom. Stephen Hartke, who is an American composer born in 1952. And I've got a couple discs of his stuff. Actually, there's more upstairs. He's a very good composer. One of the things that always makes me feel guilty about, doing this is that there is so much music to cover. There's so much out there. People say today, where are all the great composers? Where are the composers of yesterday, tomorrow, and whatnot? And you want to be able to talk about them, but the problem is that you've got to cover tons and tons of stuff. There's all the composers who ever existed. Then there's the ones who are around now. And you find some good ones, and they don't get systematic treatment on disc. And the opportunities to hear them are patchy. And you get distracted by other things. I mean, it's just an issue. There's so much music to think about. Really, we have to think about it. In days gone by, and particularly before the advent of recordings, music was contemporary music. It was what was available today. So it limited itself, or what you could do at home. It just limited itself. It was a much smaller universe to cover. So anyway, that's a way of apologizing for the fact that I don't talk more about some really good contemporary composers like Hartke. He's really good. And here we have his clarinet concerto, subtitled Landscapes with Blues, which is absolutely gorgeous. Richard Stoltzman plays the clarinet fabulously, as usual, with the Irish Chamber Orchestra under Michael Stern here on Naxos. It has 3 movements: Senegambia, Delta Nights, and Philamayork. Get it? Philadelphia, New York, Senegal, Gambia, and Delta Nights. It's kind of like the Gershwin Piano Concerto for clarinet, except that Hartke's range of reference is much bigger. He's encompassing Latin music and African music and mixing it all in a really flavorful sauce. I reviewed this at ClassicsToday.com also, so you can take a look at this and the companion disc I'll talk about in a moment for more extensive discussion of the works. But it's absolutely first-class music. The Rose of the Winds is a string octet. I basically described it as sort of like a modern Tallis Fantasia, which it sort of is. Very, very beautiful. Gradus is for the weird combination of bass clarinet, vibraphone, piano, violin, cello, and double bass. It's 7 fun-filled minutes. And Pacific Rim for orchestra is an 11-minute tone poem, a homage to Los Angeles and its mixture of cultures. And I love this stuff, this eclectic, fun-filled, melting pot kind of music. It gives you a chance to hear what the composer can make of all of these multifarious influences. Then we've got another disc on New World, Sons of Noah, the 3 lost chapters of the Bible for soprano. Get this: 4 flutes, 4 guitars, and 4 bassoons. What a weird ensemble, and what wonderful sounds Hartke makes out of it. Oh, it's so much fun. The text is by Philip Littell after a short story by, by Machado de Assis or someone like that. I don't know. I can't pronounce any of this stuff. Anyway, it's for soprano, in this case the composer's wife, who's, Lisa Stidham. Thank you. I think I did that right, at least. Lisa Stidham, soprano, who's excellent. And it tells the story of the sons of Noah who get into a terrible, terrible spat over how they're going to divvy up their property once the flood subsides. And that's what it's about. And it's very inventive. And Stidham has to play all the different roles, and she does it marvelously. It's really fun. It's a little chamber opera, 30 minutes long. Well worth hearing. And like I said, the scoring is just extraordinarily different and inventive. And then we've got Wolfstan at the Millennium, music for 10 players, obviously based on medieval stuff. There are antiphons and a conductus and a responsory, and it's all very spiritual, but really beautiful. And here it is, beautifully performed and recorded on New World. The ensemble is led by Donald Crockett. And like I said, it's really worth hearing. Hartke is a guy who's got something to say. And there are other discs of his music out, which you can explore on your own. But do give him a shot. He's earned it. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.